Because what is it saying about animation when you feel like you need to make everything live action? Blah.
Lily's in the car, she's talking again. Yeah.
I'm in the car. All right, so I'm going to give my thoughts on Lilo and Stitch, why I like it so much, and then I'm going to talk about the new movie. I just wanted to acknowledge how impactful the original movie was. When you think about Lilo and Stitch, the idea of it sounds like it wouldn't work. You think of like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? That's a movie where it easily could have flopped because the concept of it is it's a little bizarre. I wouldn't say that this is a bizarre concept, but it does kind of seem random. It seems like two different stories, right? Like Stitch's story could be its own little TV show or thing, and then Lilo's story and Nani's story could kind of be their own thing. So combining them and making it a story about family, really giving Chris Sanders, I feel like he was out of the box with this idea, something that I think Disney would really benefit from, is really thinking outside the box. So when they first announced that there was going to be a live action, I wasn't that thrilled. I was like, okay, it'll bring Stitch back into the forefront, right? There's so much product that's Stitch related. He's probably almost as popular as Mickey, I would say. It makes sense for them to want to do this because they're going to make so much money off of making him popular again. Well, the late Gen Z millennial heart in me is like, do we really have to do this with another item? Tweak it up.
What?
No. It was the first. Is this wet?
Ew.
The first movie I ever saw. Like, okay, that's not true. That's not true. But it was one of the first movies I remember seeing in a theater. Like, I remember it. I remember it vividly. It's the first movie in my memory of early childhood that wasn't like Pixar to be about like a little girl that wasn't a princess. I felt like I could relate to Lilo a lot. She was a little weird. She didn't always have a bunch of friends. I had friends, but I definitely feel like people initially thought me as weird, and they still do, but here we are. Concept of a character like Lilo who is not as welcome and accepted, and she lost her family, so she already feels like her world is small, but she's still being herself in it. I really like that. And what a concept to have, a story about this sister basically fighting for custody to keep her family together, because that's all the family she has, just for it to be intercepted by this blue alien. And it really was such a specific type of story that I could have never imagined would be so successful.
Also, they really ate having him come into the other Disney movies. That was brilliant marketing. I've never seen anything like that.
The art style in it is like something you don't normally see. For them to have watercolor and then have the animation on top of that was really revolutionary for them. I don't think they had any other movies that were like that. Obviously, older Disney movies, you can see there's like layering and artistic painted backgrounds, but the watercolor specifically was new. I think that they honed in making sure that the culture was represented, the takes on tourism and everything like that. I loved what that movie was doing before I really understood what they were doing. I'll get into the live action. I could sit here and talk all day about how, they keep doing that because they want to make a bunch of money. Listen, people are spending their money, they're going to see it, so I can see why they're like, might as well do it again. And they're tapping in on the nostalgia. They're hoping that they're going to get, people like me's butt in the seats. And they're going to get kids and families who want something to go see. It's an easy sell, and then they don't have to write anything new. The old Lilo and Stitch proves why when you write something new and out of the box and creative and unique, you can really succeed off of that. So I do feel sad that I feel like they did the opposite by taking something as unique as Lilo and Stitch and making it and rehashing it again, but here we are. I saw the movie, I saw an advanced screening. There were certain moments that did hit that core, feeling in my heart of remembering when I was a kid in the theaters and seeing, Lilo and Stitch meet for the first time. Like, all of those feelings would come back in certain scenes. But I would say that's really about it. I left feeling like Maya Kealoha, wonderful. I think she did a great job. This being her first big role, I feel like she did a pretty good job for a young actress. She was like 5 or 6 at the time that she filmed most of that. So that's really impressive. I thought Stitch looked cute, I liked a couple of miscellaneous added scenes. I didn't even hate that Jumbo and Pleakley were human a lot of the time. I do feel like it kind of made more sense in a more modern world that we would not be buying if they were wearing wigs. However, I miss our diva. I do miss our diva. Clearly they were afraid to really go there, and I know the director had said he tried, but that was disappointing. Gantu. Now here's the thing is, I can kind of see why they cut him, but at the same time, I did miss his presence.
His body is T right here. I just had to insert this picture.
But considering how I felt like the CGI sometimes looked good and sometimes didn't, I feel like Gantu would have been really difficult to capture looking good, and I don't know. I feel like they would have, I don't know. So part of me is like, I understand why they cut it, but I'm also a little sad about it. It felt a little rushed because in the very beginning of the movie, I feel like they set up Stitch and Jumba and his creation and how dangerous he can be, and him breaking out was a little bit more of a process, and there was a little bit of a thrill to it. I think they removed a lot of that. They have Stitch break out so fast. And also, I don't like that Jumba's voice is like that. It does not fit him really at all. It's nothing against Zach Galifianakis specifically. Obviously, I'm entertained by Zach in other movies. I just don't think he was right for this particular part, because I just didn't feel like that was Jumba and that I was supposed to be scared of him. So when Jumba, spoiler alert, becomes sort of the overarching villain, he does not redeem himself. He does not just say, oh, okay, Stitch, like, you're right, I'm gonna help y'all. That doesn't happen in this. That's why his voice especially really didn't help, because I'm like, well, at least if they were gonna make him have this voice that's like not as domineering as if he had that lower accent. I don't know. I just feel like that would have made him more like mad scientist-y, and I was not afraid of this. I was not afraid of him.
To clarify, I don't think Jumba was ever necessarily meant to be scary, because in my eyes, I think he's really cute. Like, he's so cute. Like, look at him. He's so unserious, and it would have given him this cliche mad scientist vibe that I think the original story was trying to give off, where he's not actually all that scary.
Pleakley, they made more himbo-like. I didn't hate it. I thought Billy did a good job with it, and it was cute. I kind of liked Pleakley in this, strangely enough. I missed that bob wig, but I'm accepting I liked him. Like, Nani in this movie does not take her to the shelter. I think that was so necessary. I think it makes more sense that she, as the caretaker, would be the one to decide that Lilo gets a dog, not just the neighbor. And I feel like that was irresponsible of the neighbor to do too.
And side note, because they removed that, they took out the line that's like, Lilo, you Lolo. I love that. And then also when she's like, Stitch is not a good name in Iceland, but here it's a good name. I missed that.
We see Lilo running around doing things like that. Why would the neighbor just be like, let's get her out, let's let her have this dog? Like, that makes no sense. That should have been Nani's decision to make. She shouldn't have been surprised by that. I don't hate that at the beginning she's late to the recital. I actually don't hate that. I feel like that kind of made her crash out a little bit more logical, but I don't like that she was fully kicked out of the class, and I don't like that we didn't really get much of Myrtle in this. I think that would have been beneficial. Because here's the thing, I'm understanding it's live action, they want the movie to feel like a separate entity. You think about like The Little Mermaid on Broadway, and then the live action Little Mermaid. Those are all three separate entities, but they're still united by being the same film, characters and franchise. So I can kind of understand why they want to differentiate them, but I'm also like, there were some moments where I felt like we should have stayed on the course, and then we could have slightly drifted, but sometimes they would fully drift in a way that I didn't like. The newer social worker, I like her. I like that it's Nani's original actress. I liked it, but then I was like, okay, they made it really real with the whole healthcare thing, but that's unrealistic. It is unrealistic for her to get healthcare that quick. So that was a little too painful to hear. And I do kind of like how they used that later. So it made, the stakes higher. Gave a more realistic reason than the aliens blew over the house as to why Lilo gets taken away. But I don't know. I think it was like that realism. At the end of the day, there's a blue alien running around. Like, I don't feel like I needed too much realism, because then I felt like I was watching like a soap drama where it's like sad. I don't know. There's realism here and I like that, but I'm also like, I don't know that I wanted that in this particular story. And there were so many things where I'm like, okay, I'm in it, I'm enjoying it enough, but then there was times where I felt like my mind was drifting away because I just wanted it to be the original so bad. But that's the problem. Really, anything. If Cinderella, I felt like the reason that worked was because that movie was older. So when you take something that's an older film that people aren't rewatching consistently and is already like a fairy tale that exists, it's easier to translate that into a live action because you're not expecting it to be the exact same, because Cinderella is a story and a lot of those the fairy tale stories can be translated differently. When you have a movie, you're basically taking a movie story and you're trying to reboot it, basically. It's hard. It's much harder for audiences to not just literally want the original piece. Because what is it saying about animation when you feel like you need to make everything live action? That's my tea. And I know that because I work, and my coworker, she's a teacher, and she was like, oh, I don't even like animated movies. And I said, well, this is live action. She said, yeah, but there were still animated things in this. And I said, right. So then why make it, I felt like there was so many things I was impressed with. There was moments that I thought were cute. There were lines and things that I think were added that I liked from Lilo. And I did cry when Stitch was like, I'm bad, and she's like, no, you're not bad, you just did a bad thing. Like, I did cry at that, and I liked that. I liked him saving her picture. I just didn't like Jumba's direction. I don't like that he's not redeemed. I felt like the pacing was a little weird in moments. And I just felt like there was some warmth from it in certain areas that I was missing, and humor that I felt like the humor was translated to be funnier for little children and not, funny for everybody. That, like, I don't like fart burp humor. Kids are better than that, So bring back her, like, found that this morning, leave me alone here to die. They had certain moments like that, but I don't feel like they hit the same way because the rest of the movie was like, Stitch throwing the book at Bubbles is hilarious to me because it's just the way that he does it. It's just exactly the way like a chaotic animal would do. I think it's so funny, and I was missing that. Okay, I do think we should highlight the girls, and I think that their story is just as important, but I don't know, I feel like he wasn't in it as much without the whole ugly duckling side story and Lilo being like, I remember everyone that leaves, and him going. I think we needed that for the added drama. There was already so much drama in this. Why not add that too? So I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm a professional reviewer or critic. I kind of gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I think there was moments that were cute and interesting and, elevated the story. And then there was moments like, the ending and a lot of the other changes where I felt like those could have been adjusted. Nani should have just went to school on Hawaii, and still done marine biology and lived her dream. And then she could have said, you know what, we'll all move in with the neighbors and we'll start a life like that, and I'll commute and I'll go to school, and that way our family is still together. So I see why people are saying we lost Johanna, and then some people are like, no, like, she didn't just give her away, the family, the neighbors, that idea is, the family can come from around you. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I just felt like it would have made more sense for her to just stay and go to college on the island and still be, living out of there and being with Lilo. That way she could sort of, as she gets older, transition from, college student and work that way out. I felt like that would have been, I don't know, I'm saying a lot of words, but I just feel like there was a way to approach the college thing differently than her going all the way to the mainland for marine biology. That didn't make any sense. There was rumor going around saying, oh, it's free to go to college, but I think that was a rumor, but I don't know. So she really cared strongly. She was fighting tooth and nail to keep Lilo. She didn't even care that there were aliens. She was like, I gotta get my sister. This Lilo, she's a little girl. Like, she was like, I don't care that y'all are aliens right now. I need my sister. Whereas in the movie, the urgency did not feel there. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts. I just had to sit and be real with it in the car. Maybe I'll make that my bit if I'm just sitting in the car reviewing while I'm in a costume, but I just need to get that out there. So remember, y'all, Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten and all that. Goodbye.